I'm sure we'll all sleep easier knowing you won't be sabotaging us anymore. That's how it started. No warning, no whisper. Just the CTO's voice crackling through the all-hands Zoom, tinny and smug, echoing off 1,000 home offices like a goddamn executioner reading from cue cards. Julia blinked once, twice, fingers frozen above her keyboard. The company Slack blew up in real time, peach emojis, stunned silence, one rogue crying gif from someone who clearly clicked too fast. Effective immediately, he went on, pretending not to smirk. Julia Edwards is no longer with the company. Legal has issued a 1-year non-compete, which she has agreed to. We appreciate her past efforts. Past efforts. Like she hadn't carried their back-end infrastructure on her back for 5 years, duct taping legacy code into something that actually worked. She wasn't the one who stayed up till 3 a.m. during the outage last Christmas, while he was skiing in Aspen or whatever rich boy fantasyland he'd crawled out of. And now, he was stripping her name from the company wiki in front of everyone like she was a coffee intern who farted in the break room. Her video feed stayed live, stone still, unreadable. She didn't cry, didn't rage. Her face was the kind of blank that makes you worry. Can you see right before a thunderstorm rolls in? I'm sorry, what? Someone whispered hot mic. Is this a joke? Someone else typed. The CTO didn't flinch. We take IP protection seriously. Julia understood that when she signed her employment contract, she's had every opportunity to align with leadership decisions. Leadership. That was rich coming from a man who once asked her how to unzip a RGZ file and then acted like she'd insulted his lineage when she did it for him. Julia slowly reached forward, clicked leave meeting. The screen vanished into grayscale static. No goodbye, no final words, just a quiet click. She stood up from her chair in her tiny home office, the air stale and buzzing, heart thudding like it was trying to crawl up her throat. Her cat stirred on the windowsill and gave her a lazy blink, like, well, that was something. She walked over to the bookshelf. Third shelf down, behind the dead succulent and that mug she'd won for most reliable team member 3 years ago, a drawer. Technically, it was a fake drawer, hollowed out of an old filing cabinet. She popped it open. Inside, one USB thumb drive, labeled in black marker, all caps, root access final V5. She stared at it for a moment, then slipped it into the pocket of her jeans like a coin for the ferryman. Back at the company HQ Slack, the CTO posted a final farewell message. Something sterile, PR slick, probably ghostwritten by HR. We thank Julia for her contributions and wish her all the best. No mention of the disaster recovery protocol she designed from scratch after their database meltdown. No mention of the caching system she'd quietly rebuilt over Thanksgiving while he posted about gratitude and family. No mention of how, without Julia, thing ran like a busted Roomba humping a coffee table leg. In the days that followed, her inbox filled with one kind of message, confusion laced with fear. Are you okay? Did you really sign a non-compete? What happened? What did you do? She didn't answer any of them. The truth was, she hadn't agreed to anything. Not yet. She'd been told by legal to expect documents forthcoming. She hadn't even seen the non-compete yet, but she knew it was coming. She knew exactly how to handle it. She opened her laptop, disconnected from the company VPN, deleted the Slack app, shut down the company-issued laptop and shoved it, still warm, into the closet behind the laundry basket. She cracked open her personal machine, an older ThinkPad, unremarkable, scarred with old coffee stains and duct tape over the webcam, and typed one line into a private encrypted notebook. If they wanted a war, should have read the fine print. The next day, the courier showed up at her door. Manila envelope, neat signature line, prepaid return label. Inside, termination letter, NDA, and a particularly venomous 1-year non-compete agreement that looked like it had been crafted by a lawyer who thought empathy was a tax write-off. Julia read the clauses slowly, methodically. No employment with competitors. No contracting. No contribution to any product that resembles their offering in any material or strategic way. They really thought they'd buried her. She poured herself a glass of water, sat down, and started making a list. On the left, every system she ever touched. On the right, every commit ID tied to her name. At the bottom, 3 initials, JBE, and a date, 5 months prior. The day she'd started backing things up. Just in case. Are 2 kinds of people in tech. The ones who plan 2 weeks ahead, and the ones who plan a year ahead and never let on. She had let him think she was the former. She slid the USB drive into her private laptop and waited for the boot-up chime. Whatever he thought he'd won, It started dying the second she walked out of that Zoom room, and she knew exactly when it would be buried. The state website crashed twice before it finally let her file the claim. Julia sat hunched over her kitchen table at 2:47 a.m., bathed in the cold glow of her laptop, clicking through government forms with the mechanical deadness of someone who'd been staring into the void for too long. She hadn't slept, hadn't eaten much either. Just Diet Coke and old cereal she found behind the baking soda. Filing for unemployment felt like admitting failure to a machine that didn't care. She hit submit. A spinning wheel. A line of gray text. Claim pending employer response required. 3 days later, she got her response. Denied. Reason, termination for cause. Ineligible for benefits. Filed by HR Karen M. Julia barked a joyless laugh. Karen, of course. She clicked through the PDF. Their claim? Violation of internal compliance protocols. Willful disregard for leadership directives. Translated from corporate. She told the CTO his feature request would cause a security breach, and he didn't like that. Her phone buzzed. A notification from her former company's admin panel auto-forwarded to her personal email, an old oversight they must have forgotten. The subject, user J. Edwards access revoked. The list was long. Confluence, Jira, GitLab, Slack, G Suite. Her email account now bounced. Even the team wiki she built from scratch was stripped of her name. Her avatar replaced with a gray default silhouette. She clicked on a commit she'd authored. Access denied. Then came the real kicker. An internal message sent to the engineering team leaked to her via a sympathetic junior dev. Please note Julia did not contribute directly to current platform infrastructure. Any perceived ownership is misattributed. Do not engage further. She stared at the sentence like it had physically slapped her. Did not contribute directly. 5 years of architecture meetings, 4 platform rewrites, hundreds of midnight deploys. That Christmas Eve patch she shipped from her dying grandmother's hospital room, tethering Wi-Fi through her phone. And now, in the eyes of the company, she'd been digitally erased. She closed the laptop and sat there, staring at nothing. There's a silence that follows betrayal. It isn't loud. It's the kind that wraps around your throat and whispers, you were a fool to trust them. She didn't move for a full hour. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She opened an old spiral-bound notebook and wrote 3 words in the margin. Make them prove it. And that's when everything began to shift. She started pulling records, not company files. They'd scrubbed most of those, but personal backups. Local commits, email receipts, architecture diagrams she'd exported before meetings. She dug through old folders, found screenshots, even sticky notes with sequence diagrams. She still had the USB drive, too. She didn't plug it in yet. Not yet. That was for later. She downloaded her entire GitHub archive, backed up her Notion pages, reconstructed her original database schema from memory. It was all there, just enough. Not too much, but enough. Silence had turned into strategy. Later that week, she walked into a law office on the east side of town, modest building, no-nonsense signage, receptionist who looked like she'd seen 10,000 sob stories and still had sympathy left. Julia Edwards. Yeah, Mr. Latner will see you now. Her attorney was mid-50s, wore jeans with his blazer, and had the grizzled charm of someone who'd beaten back more than a few NDA-toting corporations. Flipped through her packet for 15 minutes, nodding occasionally, grunting once or twice. Then he leaned back. Well, first off, they were scared of you. That's what this is. I've seen it before. Scared? He tapped the non-compete clause with his pen. This is overkill. This isn't standard. It's written like they think you're going to start your own company tomorrow and eat them alive. She didn't answer. He studied her face, then gave a small, amused snort. Should I be worried? Don't know yet. He nodded like he respected that. Unfortunately, he sighed, under current state law, this thing holds up. Barely. They'll argue you had strategic influence, privileged access to sensitive client data, etc. Judge'll probably lean their way if it's a close call. Julia looked down. But he added, and this is a big but, there's legislation. Just passed. Doesn't go into effect until January 1st next year. And once it does, these clauses won't be enforceable against most tech workers. She looked up sharply. Wait, seriously? Dead serious. But you'd need to keep your nose clean until then. No paper trail, no leaks, no violation. You cross the line, even once, they'll have you in court so fast your teeth will rattle. She nodded slowly. And if I don't cross the line, he leaned forward. Then on January 1st, they got nothing. Her fingers curled around the strap of her bag. Thanks, she said, voice quiet but steady. That's all I needed to know. That night, she packed a duffel bag, 2 changes of clothes, toothbrush, the old ThinkPad, thumb drive still tucked into her coat pocket, and that spiral notebook now thick with scribbled diagrams and timelines, pages dog-eared and torn. She left a note for her landlord, gone a few days. Rent's in the mailbox. No GPS. No social media. Just her and the road. Crossed the state border at 1:12 a.m. Didn't tell anyone where she was going. But she wasn't running. She was meeting someone, off-record, off-grid, someone who owed her a favor and had a quiet little office with no sign on the door where code and law could shake hands over black coffee and low voices. Julia didn't look back once. She'd already seen everything she needed. Julia deleted her LinkedIn at 3:07 a.m. No status update. No long goodbye. Just a click, a password, and silence. The page vanished into the digital void like she'd never existed. No endorsements. No posts about leading through uncertainty. No list of tech stack buzzwords to impress recruiters who'd never read past the second line. Just gone. Her GitHub followed, repos set to private, profile photo scrubbed, bio blanked. The last visible commit was from 6 months ago. A typo fix in a README. No fanfare. No breadcrumbs. By morning, the people still talking about her were using past tense. Did you hear what happened to Julia? I think she left tech. I heard she moved to Europe or something. Nah, burnout, she always seemed. Brittle, you know, the CTO, of course, ate it up. Even bragged to a couple board members that the threat was neutralized. That's what he called her. A threat. What no one knew, what no one even thought to ask, was that 412 miles away, in a quiet industrial park behind a vape shop and a gym that never seemed open, something was beginning to stir. It started with an LLC. Boring name. No Twitter. No funding announcements. Just a clean registration filed in a tech-friendly state with a reputation for looking the other way. The name on the documents? Not Julia Edwards. It was Elaine Rowe, name she'd used once in college to sign up for a Reddit AMA about women in cybersecurity because she didn't want weird DMs. Now it was her legal alias for business, complete with a new EIN, a burner phone, and a P.O. box halfway across town. Elaine didn't post. She didn't tweet. She didn't write medium think pieces or build in public. She built quietly. She built well. It wasn't a solo act either. 2 names on the payroll, Devin and Kara, old interns. The only 2 people she trusted anymore. They thought she was dead too when she first reached out. Hey, it's Jay. I can't explain. I need your help. 3 words into the NDA, Devin texted back, I'm in. Kara didn't even read the rest. Just signed and sent a octopus emoji, an old inside joke from their intern days debugging a bug in the octopus animation engine that somehow deleted user sessions. Rules were strict. No real names, no metadata, no social media, no repo tracebacks. All commits done through rotated VPNs, and most importantly, no code resembling anything they built at the old company, not yet. They didn't need to copy anything. Julia had the blueprints. Not in a literal sense, she wasn't that stupid, but in her head. The mistakes they made, the infrastructure they ignored, the features users begged for and never got. It wasn't building their product. She was building the version they should have made. From scratch, leaner, meaner, modular, elegant in a way only necessity can force. Their whole system was duct-taped around enterprise contracts and CTO ego. Julia's new one, it glided. Every night, they pushed new commits to encrypted containers. Every morning, they reviewed changes on a janky custom dashboard hosted on a $5 VPS that looked like Craigslist for hackers. It was duct tape and baling wire, but it worked. And the best part, no one saw it coming. Until one day, a whisper floated back into her old company's Slack like a fart in an elevator. Hey, anyone heard of this new tool, Argive? Some startup out of Vermont or something? Looks like they're building a platform that does 80% of what we do, but better. The thread went quiet. Then someone posted a link. Just a landing page, minimalist. No pricing, no team bios. Just a sleek tagline in black on white, we believe software should work. No mention of Julia, no fingerprints. Just clean HTML and a sign-up box that didn't do anything yet. But it didn't have to. The name alone was enough to sow doubt. Argive. The same codename Julia had used years ago in a joke repo, buried, private, forgotten. Except now it was real. Probably a coincidence, someone said. Yeah, replied another. Still, timing's weird, right? They let the conversation die. No one wanted to poke it, but the CTO noticed. He pretended not to, but he did. He bookmarked the site, kept tabs. Every few days, he'd load it again. Still blank. Still no updates. Still that same line, "We believe software should work." And far, far away, Julia sat in a dusty office with no heat, sipping gas station coffee, viewing a pull request from Kara about improving API latency by shaving 120 ms off handshake time. She smiled, because they weren't building hype. They were building fear. It started with a refund request, then 2, then 17. By the end of the month, over 100 enterprise clients had filed complaints ranging from minor API inconsistencies to full-blown system outages. The logs were riddled with timeouts. Data exports failed silently. Scheduled reports sent blank PDFs at midnight. One Fortune 500 company reported a phantom user creating billing profiles under defunct accounts. Their customer success team, already stretched thinner than a gas station condom, spiraled into chaos. Still, the CTO brushed it off. It's churn season. Procurement reshuffles. Happens every year. He told the product team to patch faster, as if tech debt could be duct-taped in sprint planning. When engineering leads raised alarms about the legacy features, code Julia had built, maintained, and warned them would implode if mishandled, he waved a hand. They'll be back. They always come back. He said this while polishing a slide deck for a funding round. He didn't notice that 2 of their former top clients had quietly onboarded with a startup no one had heard of before. A startup that didn't advertise, that didn't pitch at conferences, that didn't exist on Crunchbase. Argive, just the name, floating like vapor in inboxes and discords across mid-level tech teams. Then, on a foggy Thursday at 2:00 a.m., a Medium post went live. Title: The Emperor Has No Redundancy. A cautionary tale in mismanaged infrastructure. Author: Basilisk Dev. It was brutal. Surgical. Not angry, precise. Post walked through the architecture of a large B2B platform, uncannily similar to Julia's old company. It highlighted a dependency chain collapse between 2 services that hadn't been updated since 2018. It dissected a caching pattern that led to silent data corruption under load. It even referenced an internal system called Falcon Bridge, a name that had only appeared in internal Slack threads, and one drunken offsite where Julia coined it as a joke. Falcon Bridge sounds like a haunted zipline, she'd said, and the name stuck. Only 3 people had ever referred to it as that publicly, and one of them was gone. Who the hell is Basilisk Dev? Someone whispered in Slack. Doesn't matter. This is bad. The post spread like malware. CTOs forwarded it to their CIOs. Procurement managers quoted it in emails demanding status updates. Industry group chats lit up like slot machines. Internally, panic seeped in through the walls, slow and invisible. But the CTO, still smug. This is just noise. Our pipeline is strong. He said this while support tickets doubled. While legal quietly pinged his assistant with what is Falcon Bridge and do we license it? Julia read the article from a cracked phone in a bar off I-91. The kind of place with sticky booths and a jukebox that only played Sad Country or Creedence Clearwater. She'd just finished a code review. Devin had found a more efficient way to handle client-side encryption that cut load times in half. She'd promised to buy him a burger. But instead, she sat alone in the corner, nursing a bourbon that tasted like wood glue, and reread the Medium piece. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. She just sipped slowly, watching the article climb Hacker News. Nobody would link her to it, not unless they remembered the joke, not unless they remembered her. And they didn't. Not really. She was the ghost now, and ghosts don't tweet. Across the bar, a dusty TV above the liquor shelf flickered to a local news channel. Snow expected, traffic delays, something about tax reform. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She let it ring twice before answering. Yeah, a familiar voice. One of her quiet contacts, the one with connections at the State House. The one she hadn't talked to in months. He didn't waste time, it passed. Just now. 38-12. Governor already said he's signing it. Julia held her breath. He continued. Goes into effect January 1st. Non-compete's done, at least for tech workers. You're in the clear, just a few more months. The line went quiet, then you knew, didn't you? Julia exhaled through her nose, watching condensation fog the bar window. I hoped, she said. He laughed once, dry and low. Then I guess they're screwed. She hung up. Outside, the first flakes of snow began to fall. The bourbon burned, clean and steady. Inside her coat pocket, the thumb drive rested. Still there, still untouched, but not for long. There was a moment, somewhere between the fourth straight night of code refactoring and the 28th review of legal language, when Julia realized what she'd built wasn't just a product. It was leverage. It started with a skeleton, the same architectural principles she'd once pitched in conference rooms filled with execs more interested in branding colors than data integrity. But this time, she wasn't asking anyone's permission. There were no decks, no stand-ups, no let's circle back. Just code, clean, fast, and hers. The product didn't even have a public name yet. Internally, they still called it Argive, though it wouldn't stay that way for long. But it was ready, built from the ground up in a parallel, modular structure. It mimicked none of the proprietary frameworks of her old company, but outperformed them in almost every measurable way. Session load handling, request latency, API modularity, failover redundancy. Everywhere the old system sagged, hers glided. No bloat, no corporate theater, just precision. It was like rewriting a novel after someone else butchered the manuscript. Kara handled the front end, light and fast, with an accessibility focus Julia had always wanted but never got buy-in for. Devin rewrote the middleware using a custom pipeline they drafted on a bar napkin 6 weeks ago. And Julia, the nucleus, kept the back end tight. Data integrity, versioning, redundancy, her domain, her language. By the first week of November, the system passed every internal stress test, scaled a test instance to 20,000 concurrent users with no degradation. Devin wept openly on Zoom. The next morning, Julia met with her attorney. It was time. They'd been quietly preparing the legal package for months. Timestamps, Git logs, Slack exports, witness statements from ex-employees who still owed her loyalty. She had IP that predated her employment contract. Small tools, modules, helper functions she'd written on her own hardware before signing anything. She'd flagged the usage of those components inside the production system over a year ago, but the CTO had dismissed her concerns. "You overestimate your importance," he'd said back then. She hadn't forgotten. Now, her legal team drafted an IP infringement claim, one with teeth. It called out a very specific pre-employment library she developed and maintained privately, which had been absorbed into the company's proprietary analytics module. She'd warned them. They used it anyway, they didn't own it, and now they'd built half their flagship product around it. By the time the legal packet was printed, indexed, and sealed for delivery, she'd already taken the next step. She brokered a deal. The target, a mid-sized, underdog competitor of her former company. A firm with funding, vision, a deep-seated hatred for the bloated monopoly her old CTO commanded. Their CEO took the meeting instantly. No pitch deck, no small talk, just a private demo and one line: "If you want to own the next version of this industry, I'm handing you the keys." He watched, listened, nodded slowly, then asked the only question that mattered: "When can we launch?" She smiled. January 3rd. Coincides with the death of the non-compete law. Grinned like someone handed him a sniper rifle preloaded with coordinates. They signed within a week. The licensing agreement was airtight. White label rights, full rollout clearance, exclusive use in 3 verticals, and a kill switch clause Julia retained, just in case anyone got cute. Meanwhile, her old company was busy lighting its own house on fire. The CTO, oblivious, announced a new funding round. Desperation disguised as confidence, went on TechCrunch babbling about unprecedented growth and next-gen solutions, even as engineers quietly jumped ship and client churn quietly ballooned. He gave interviews, threw buzzwords like spaghetti, posted shirtless hiking photos on Instagram with captions like "building the future one summit at a time." But behind the curtain, panic was setting in. A product lead leaked to her via Devin. They'd lost another enterprise account. The support team was drowning. Internal ticket volume had tripled. The DevOps lead walked out mid-sprint, and they didn't even know yet that Julia owned the legal equivalent of a detonator in her glove box. But they would, soon. She wasn't just finishing code. She was drawing lines in the sand. Every decision had weight now. Every clause in the licensing contract, every version control tag, every Git log signature, it all mattered. This wasn't a passion project anymore. It was a chessboard. She was moving with purpose. Her team ran one last internal demo the night before Thanksgiving. Just the 3 of them on Zoom, faces pixelated, voices ragged from too many late nights. But when the test completed, 0.8 ms faster than their last benchmark, nobody cheered. They just exhaled. It was done. Julia muted herself, turned off the camera, and leaned back in the dark. A year ago, she'd walked out of that Zoom call humiliated and hollow. Now she held a product her old company couldn't compete with, and a contract that would launch the day the law shackling her dissolved into irrelevance. She whispered to no one, "You should have buried me deeper." Then she clicked deploy. The letter landed on the CTO's desk on a Tuesday morning, sandwiched between a venture partner follow-up and a catering invoice for a leadership offsite that never happened. Cream envelope, embossed seal. No drama, no legalese tantrum. Just 5 quiet pages, calm, brutal, and airtight. Subject: immediate cease and desist, unauthorized use of proprietary software components from Latner and Rowe LLP to Redacted Tech Corp. Atten, Chief Technology Officer. The opening paragraph was surgical. Respectful, even. It cited specific modules, pre-employment timestamps, dependency graphs. One particular line, component originally authored and registered under Julia Beatrice Edwards, March 12, 2017, was underlined in blue ink, hand-initialed. At first he laughed, out loud, right in the middle of the office. "Is this a joke?" he barked, waving the letter like a parking ticket. "She's not even in the industry anymore. We nuked her career. Someone Google this law firm, they probably specialize in dog bite cases." But the laughter didn't ripple far. The product manager who'd replaced Julia looked pale. She recognized the module in question. It sat at the heart of their user analytics pipeline, the same one they'd scaled hastily during Q2 without a full review. 2 engineers had quietly raised flags about the legacy code there, weeks ago. One even asked, "Hey, wasn't this Julia's?" He was told to focus on forward momentum. Now, legal huddled in the glass conference room. The CTO paced outside, pacing a trench into the polished concrete, still smirking. 5 minutes. 10. The door opened. The head of legal stepped out, holding the letter like it had grown fangs. "You said this was standard?" "It is," he said. She didn't blink. "Then why is this module still in production?" He started to answer, but stopped. She lowered her voice. "You didn't scrub her code." I mean, we refactored, not enough, not this piece. Look." She turned the page. There it was. Clear as sunlight, a Git commit ID, signed with Julia's old GPG key. Feature module predating her contract, integrated post-hire but never reassigned. The company had no IP claim to it. Worse, it was foundational. You couldn't untangle it without pulling the whole product apart. The CTO's throat clicked dry. Could we buy her out? Not with that license clause. She owns it, period. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then he grabbed his phone and dialed the number he hadn't touched in nearly a year. Disconnected. No voicemail. Texted, "Julia, let's talk, please." Message failed. He tried again. Same result. His face tightened. Then came the call from legal. "She's filed for a temporary injunction. Judge is reviewing. Expect a hearing date within the week." He swore under his breath and slammed the office door so hard the HVAC vent rattled. 100 miles away, Julia sat outside a quiet cafe overlooking a half-frozen river, black coffee in one hand, rook in the other. She moved the piece gently, then stared at the board, thinking. Across from her, Devin watched her phone light up unread. 3 missed calls, 2 texts, all from his old number. Julia didn't look up, let him sweat. Devin chuckled, then opened his laptop. Update from Latner. Judge set the hearing for December 19th. They're rushing to get ahead of the law change. She finally looked up. Her eyes were steady, calm, let them. The wind rolled past, brittle and dry. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. A kid yelled something about hot chocolate. She moved her queen, took Devin's bishop, and leaned back. "Your move." He stared at the board and laughed. "You planned this far ahead?" Julia didn't answer. She just sipped her coffee, eyes on the board. Across the chess squares, the game was already over. He just hadn't realized it yet, just like the CTO. At first, it was just whispers. Slack thread quietly renamed from Hash Product Insights to Hash Project Phoenix, as if a new name could exorcise the old rot. Engineers were told to drop everything and start refactoring legacy modules. No specifics, no timelines, just panic disguised as urgency. The CTO called it a strategic rewrite, but the team knew what it was. Code triage. Within 48 hours, the engineering org resembled a battlefield. All requests collided like bumper cars. One senior dev rage quit after being told to just remove Julia's patterns with no guidance on how to replace them. Another accidentally wiped half the staging environment trying to reroute dependencies. In the background, the Slack DMs churned. Who the hell still has access to those original commits? "I thought we deleted the backups." "We did. But Git's forever, bro." "Dude, she's citing stuff from 2017. Even his GPG." Legal's asking if we ever documented that library integration. We didn't, right? I'm not answering that on Slack. The CTO started hosting daily stand-ups. He called them war rooms. Nobody laughed. He barked orders, demanded timelines, insisted they could rebuild the system without any of her fingerprints. But the truth was, Julia was the system. Her fingerprints weren't just in the code base. They were in the logic, the architecture, very bones of the product. You couldn't rewrite her out, not without amputating every limb. And then the deposition requests started arriving. Email, certified mail, process servers at home addresses. Not for the CTO yet. First, they went after the middle, product managers, lead devs, implementation folks. Anyone whose name had ever appeared next to a sprint card or roadmap bullet point referencing Julia's modules. Latner's legal team was relentless, calm, polite, vicious. Every document came with exhibits. Exhibit A, Slack transcripts referencing Julia's work. Exhibit B, internal wiki pages showing her authorship. Exhibit C, deployment logs dated post-termination using her proprietary framework. The case wasn't just strong, it was damning. And still, Julia said nothing. No tweets, no leaks, no press, just silence. She didn't need noise. The paperwork was doing the screaming for her. At HQ, engineers began sending anonymized resumes to recruiters. The VP of product updated his LinkedIn at 2 a.m., quietly removed his tenure. One developer ghosted mid-sprint and was last seen in a subreddit about off-grid living in Oregon. Then someone leaked the memo. It was short, unsigned, possibly printed and scanned to hide metadata. It began circulating inside a Notion doc, shared only among engineering leads. Subject: what if this was her plan all along? Think about it. She didn't fight the non-compete, didn't countersue, just left, vanished. Then a year later, she reemerges with a product that mirrors ours, but better, with legal claims that predate her employment, with documentation so tight we can't even poke holes. What if she knew we'd do this? What if she let us bury ourselves? An engineer added a comment in the margins, like she was playing chess and we brought Uno cards. The CTO saw the leak. He flipped, called an emergency meeting, accused the team of disloyalty, threatened to lock down internal tools, demanded everyone tighten ranks. But the damage was done. Fear had replaced faith. They didn't believe in him anymore. Worse, they believed in her. And Julia? She sat in a small, windowless conference room with Latner and his team, flipping through deposition packets while sipping weak green tea from a paper cup. Across the table, one of the junior attorneys blinked. You really documented all this just in case? She didn't look up. I don't do just in case, he swallowed. So what happens next? Julia smiled faintly, the way you do when the storm you saw coming finally arrives. Next, she said, we let them keep digging. And outside the room, court clerk posted the hearing agenda to the docket. Case number 23 CV 1987 motion hearing scheduled. December 19, 10 o'clock a.m. Subject. Edwards v. Redacted Tech Corp injunction and ownership claim the countdown had begun. The courtroom smelled like cold coffee and printer toner. It was one of those beige government rooms with bad acoustics and worse lighting, everything buzzing under cheap fluorescents and slow-turning ceiling fans. December sunlight cut through dusty blinds in uneven lines, striping the floor like bars. Julia sat at the plaintiff's table in a charcoal blazer, no jewelry, hair tied back, gaze fixed ahead. Her expression was unreadable, calm, still, like a pond before a storm. No theatrics, no visible tension. Just silence, coiled and deliberate. Across from her, the CTO sat next to his counsel, trying to look composed. His suit was too new, his tie too tight. His knee bounced beneath the table, a tremor he couldn't kill. His lawyer stood up first, gray-haired, polished, and full of old-school smugness. The kind of man who'd never lost sleep over paperwork, because he assumed his name carried more weight than the law itself. Your Honor, he began, voice rich with courtroom confidence, Miss Edwards knowingly signed a 1-year non-compete agreement upon her termination. Despite this, he has launched and licensed a product that directly competes with our client's flagship platform within the restricted timeframe. He smiled as if he'd already won. The judge nodded, expression blank. Continue. The lawyer stepped toward the bench, holding up a neatly highlighted version of Julia's non-compete. We are requesting a permanent injunction against the sale, license, or further development of Miss Edwards' product and immediate disclosure of her collaborators and funding sources. In short, she is in material breach. Julia didn't move. Her attorney, Mr. Latner, rose slowly. No theatrics, no raised voice, just a soft shuffle of papers and a nod. Your Honor, that clause is no longer enforceable. The CTO's lawyer scoffed, loud enough to draw a glance. Latner continued. Per State Labor Code Amendment 74B, Section 2, Subsection A, effective January 1st of this year, non-compete clauses for software professionals in the state are deemed unconscionable and void. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He slid a single-page printout across the table toward the judge, highlighted in clean, blue ink. The judge adjusted his glasses. Read the line aloud. A contractual provision that restricts a software professional's ability to work in a similar role or industry shall be considered void as against public policy. Silence. The CTO's lawyer leaned forward to read. Then again, then slower. His face, once casual and certain, began to shift, eyebrows drawing inward, jaw tightening, lips twitching toward disbelief. He opened his mouth, closed it, turned to the CTO, whispering something urgent. CTO's smile faltered. Just for a second, just long enough. The judge looked up. So then Miss Edwards was never in breach. Latner nodded. Correct, Your Honor. The judge set the page down gently, like it might explode if handled too roughly. Well, he said, I'll review both sides fully, but the statute is clear. Unless the defense can present a compelling argument that this law doesn't apply, which seems unlikely, then yes. She was never in breach. Julia inhaled. Just once, slow, controlled. She hadn't breathed like that in a year. The CTO's lawyer remained standing, but his spine looked weaker now. He whispered again, more frantically. And then the CTO leaned in, eyes wide, voice barely audible but caught by the court mic. What's happening? The lawyer didn't answer at first. Then he turned, lips tight, voice low and bitter. He knew, he said. He knew the law would flip. The whole time, he knew, across the courtroom. Julia didn't flinch. She didn't smirk. She didn't even blink. Because the only thing louder than revenge is the silence of being right. The ruling came just before noon on a Thursday. A day so unremarkable it felt like the universe was daring her not to savor it. The judge's decision was crisp. No grandstanding, no dramatic pause, just the clean crack of the gavel and one clear sentence that would echo through the tech industry like a thunderclap. The court finds that the plaintiff retains ownership of the original intellectual property in question, and the defendant must obtain a licensing agreement for continued use, effective retroactively. The CTO didn't stand, didn't move. He looked like someone had pulled the air out of him. Not just because they lost, but because it was binding, built their castle on her foundation. And now, the foundation had a rent sign. The ruling hit the news within the hour. Engineer wins landmark IP case. Non-compete overturned by new law tech giant owes millions after failing to scrub ex-employee code David vs. Goliath. Julia Edwards vs. Her former CTO investors didn't wait for spin. They pulled funding within days. The Series C round collapsed like a lung. Contracts were paused. Procurement teams started sending emails with subject lines like reevaluation of platform viability. CTOs who had once taken golf calls with a replacement now forwarded press links with subjectless one-liners. Did you see this? The old company issued a statement, of course. Something about respecting the legal process and looking forward to amicable licensing discussions. Julia read it while eating breakfast in her new office. Steel beams, high ceilings, the scent of new carpet and fresh paint. A glass wall with her name, not in gold, not in neon, just black text on clean acrylic, Argiv Systems Inc. Her team was already in full gear. 12 people now. Kara had hired 3 more devs. Devin was onboarding a data analyst and someone who apparently spoke legalese better than English. There was a UX designer who used to work for NASA. A product lead from her former competitor. All handpicked, all loyal. They didn't ask her for morning check-ins. They didn't drown her in status decks. They just worked. Because they believed in what they were building and they believed in her. On her new desk, unfinished walnut, smooth and clean, sat one item that didn't match the decor. A small, battered USB drive. Black Sharpie across the side, faded but still legible. Root Access Final V5, she picked it up. Turned it over in her hand. Same thumb drive she'd pocketed the day they fired her. The day she said nothing and walked out with every trace of her dignity, her documentation, and her plans zipped into silent compartments. She hadn't plugged it in once. She didn't need to, because everything she'd built since then wasn't on that drive. It was inside her. The licensing agreement was finalized later that afternoon. She let them keep using the modules at a cost. 7 figures, backdated, monthly royalties indexed to platform usage. If they refused, she had the injunctions ready. They didn't refuse. The CTO didn't call. He didn't show. A junior legal assistant handled the signatures. Julia imagined him sitting in some silent corner office, staring at the walls he no longer controlled, wondering how the girl he'd erased had turned into the shadow that now loomed over every budget forecast. She didn't send a message. She didn't need to. Bank account pinged as the first payment landed. She forwarded the notification to Latner with one line, "Thank you, drinks on me." By sunset, the office windows were glowing gold. Her team buzzed in the bullpen, music low, code flowing, coffee brewing. She stepped out onto the balcony alone, looked out over the city, and let the wind run through her hair. Vindication wasn't loud. It didn't come with applause. It came with ownership of her time, her mind, her name. She didn't burn their house down. She let them keep it on her terms. And now, every time they opened their product, every click, every metric, every breath of their platform, they paid her. That's not revenge. That's revenue.